Matt in New Hampshire. Matt, you are on the air.
Howdy.
Hi. What would you like to talk to us about tonight?
So, yeah, I have a very similar topic to the last caller.
Okay.
Just kind of tying into it, though. More about just kind of fear of sexuality in general.
Okay.
Just to kind of put all my cards down, I'm 25. I've hardly been in a romantic relationship at all. And it's been hard for me to get started because I've been an atheist for about 5 years, but before this growing up, most of my childhood and even through college, a lot of sexuality was just kind of demonized and looked down upon, and any of those feelings were just shunned. So do you guys have any advice or recommendations on how to kind of move past that, small steps to take towards getting over that hurdle?
I would say firstly, for anyone who has left their religion, that shame is one of the last things to go. That's related to sex and sexuality. That is one of the very last bits that we shed. And some people never do. But I think it says a lot that you are calling in, and it sounds like you want to kind of shed that shame and that discomfort. So I just wanted to say kudos to you for that.
Yeah, it's usually the shame and guilt over sexuality, and then all of the Christian songs. Those are sort of the last things that leave your head. I mean,
Christy and I will text back and forth VeggieTales quotes to each other. So
I mean, it is still an audio adrenaline concert in my head every time I try to sleep. I cannot shake that shit.
Yep.
DGA. Anyway, I hear what you're saying. We've said it before on this show, and it ties into what we're talking about right now. But for me, it was all about exposure. It was about just being constantly inundated in different forms of sexuality in queer culture. It was watching really great movies. It was listening to podcasts. I mean, that was a huge part of why I wanted to do a show like this, why I wanted to be a part of this program, was because I knew that for me, my whole life changed by listening to like the New York Public Library podcast, some of their guests about homosexuality, listening to Dan Savage and the Savage Love Cast, watching all kinds of different movies like the ones that we'll be getting into here shortly. It was all about exposure. Now, I'm not saying that like going home and watching, Queer as Folk is going to somehow make all of your religious shame disappear, but it might help. That was my experience.
I actually have a quick question, if you don't mind, Sarah. Do you, by any chance, watch porn?
No. Mostly just because I still feel so repulsed with myself just from, trying to look at it. I've tried, but it's still just... I still get this gut feeling that I'm a terrible person just for looking at it.
Well, firstly, if that makes you a terrible person, then I am going straight to hell. But I would say then maybe starting with something a little softer.
Yeah, easing into it. And, if things are to that point, I would say that, as a therapist, this is exactly the kind of thing that I love talking to people about. And I would really strongly recommend, even if it's for one session, just swinging through a therapy office and putting some of this stuff out loud, having an hour to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about to help you sort of come up with a game plan that may include therapy or may not. I think that just having that initial conversation would be a really good place to start.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet this is probably tied to other issues too, a bundle of shame that was probably instilled into you, and it's going to be hard to address just one part of it at a time without all the others sort of exploding. But yeah, just, You need to be around people who are open about sexuality, if you can. Definitely media that's open about sexuality and does not place shame on it, so that it becomes your new normal over time. Yeah, plus therapy is good.
And I want to say also from us, there is nothing wrong with you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. And like you said, you use the word disgust. And that actually makes me very sad, because someone who would have that level of negative emotion toward themselves for their sexuality is just heartbreaking to me.
It's okay to have any feelings that you want about sex, but if it's making you feel bad about you, if it's making you feel shame about yourself just for having those normal thoughts that humans have, that's something to be addressed. Yeah.
And starting with, like we say, exposure therapy. If you don't feel that, you can stomach porn right now, start with something softer, just a movie that has sex scenes in it. If you are straight or bi or gay or wherever you land on the spectrum, find, a movie that just happens to maybe have a sex scene in it, and just start slow.
Yeah, or even before that, divorcing orientation, if that's kind of the main focus or the main cause of disgust. Divorcing orientation from actual sex. I mean, a movie like Love, Simon, I think it was PG-13. I certainly don't remember any graphic sex scenes, but that is a really sweet, really enjoyable place to start. Maybe movies and things like that are too visceral, too visual, and are tied into porn or these different things. So maybe it's erotic literature. Maybe it's just romantic books that have a gay component or whatever else. Whatever it is for you, I would say that, just spending a little bit of time easing yourself into those spaces by enjoying fictional characters before going out to, a bar and enjoying physical intimacy is a good place to start.
Interesting.
Did we help?
A weird question, kind of off topic, but
we love weird.
So. Now I have to lay down more cards, but so I play D&D, and kind of that role-playing aspect of what are you guys' recommendations about role-playing as it applies to sexuality, like online?
Yeah, this is
it's a big area.
I feel like the world has really changed since I was because that for me was a big part of discovering my sexuality was the AOL Instant Messenger and getting into chat rooms and things and going through those role plays and trying on different hats, and that taught me a lot about sex in a way that
probably about yourself.
Yeah, I very much about myself, about how I interact with the world, about how I could interact with the world by not necessarily being myself, but I don't even know where to find those types of connections, those chat rooms, those forums anymore. It feels like it's changed.
Are you wondering our opinion on whether it's healthy or?
Well, just trying to think through it. Where, as far as it goes, if I'm wearing a different hat, that's kind of a more approachable way for me to.
Yeah, I think that's very human and
express that.
I would absolutely say go for it. I don't think that there's any danger to enjoying it. My only question is I don't have any good website recommendations anymore because I feel like most of mine shut down at some point.
Yeah, I do all mine in person. Yeah, I mean, I cannot express how key a factor to understanding my own gender identity role-playing was over the years. Like so much. It can be an amazing tool, absolutely. So I encourage you.
I feel that. I really echo that.
Yeah. And it provides that buffer to be able to explore yourself and not be confronted directly with the world. You have a safety buffer.
Right.
And it reminds us of such an important thing, which is that sex is play. You know, it's goofy. I mean, it's a little silly to, you know, pretend to be a wizard having sex with an elf or whatever the hell you happen to be into. But that silliness is great and wonderful and goofy and fun. And it doesn't, you know, getting into that goofiness is a great way of disarming all of the heavy shame and importance and gravitas. You know, just being silly is a really beautiful, sexy thing, but you don't get that from TV and movies. You know, very rarely is sex portrayed as silly in any kind of mainstream film, and I think that it really is, or should be, or often is delightful to be.
Does that help at all?
That's very hard for me to have that thought that sex is a silly thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, but
I mean,
it is.
I take it so seriously.
Right.
Yeah, I hear that in your voice, and you know, I would just really challenge you to find in your own sexuality, whether it's partnered or not, whether it's with a online partner or not, whether it's just you. You know, I've never personally been super interested in like the crazy parody porns and things, but I would say try something different, try something weird. I mean, there's dark, scary weird, which is also exciting and great. But there's also silly weird, and there can be lighthearted, goofy stuff out there, whether we're talking about porn or talking about you know, erotic literature, or even just talking about, you know, again, watching like a silly CW drama. You know, there is a silly side to sex and love and relationships that I think we forget about.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the idea that you have of exploring through Dungeons and Dragons, because it's getting to explore without having any of the attachment to yourself. And so, you know, if you know that your character is good and they're, you know, flirting and doing things in a sexual fashion, and, you know, they don't have to feel ashamed, then that sort of over time can get you used to it, and you can sort of identify with them like that. It's pretty great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for just kind of being able to talk to this a little bit more openly, I guess.
And, you know, go ahead and check back in with us sometime and let us know how it's going.
All right.
Good luck out there. Thanks so much.
you.
Thank you.